How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and if you're watching this video on the day it comes out, it should be Friday the 13th. So I thought I should go ahead and talk about Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. This is from 1985 and is directed by Danny Steinmann and stars John Shepherd, Melanie Kinnaman, and Shavar Ross. This movie is about a grown-up Tommy Jarvis, and he's being transferred to a mental health facility. His life after defeating Jason has been kind of sad, and he's working to get better and get back out into the world again. However, at this facility, one of the kids murders another kid, and now Jason has showed up. But Jason is supposed to be dead, so what's going on here? Is Jason back to life? Or did the sight of blood trigger one of the people at this facility, maybe even Tommy himself? Or is something else afoot? Well, it's a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of a whodunit. Anyway, I guess talking about this movie, I should get out of the way a few things. One, a lot of people with Part 5 like to say, hey, wasn't Part 4 the final chapter? Haha, that was a lie. And yeah, I get it. You know, it made too much money. They're not going to leave that on the table. But I do like that they put A New Beginning as the title. So the final chapter kind of makes sense. It's the end of that saga, and now we're going on to a new beginning. Even if after this film wasn't as successful, they basically go back to the old ways, but whatever. One thing I did find funny is this came out a year later. So, yeah, not going, oh, it's successful, we'll bring him back later. No, it's successful, we'll bring everything back now. We're not going to wait too long. In fact, the gap between 3 and 4 was 2 years, and this was only 1 year, so yeah, so much for the pretense of Part 4 being an actual ending. But I do kind of feel that this is like Phase 2 of the Friday movies, you know? So far, there are 12 theatrical Friday the 13th movies, and I feel like, you know, the first 4 was like the classic run, and then the second 4 is a little bit more experimental. Each one of the movies kind of has their own thing going on, and then you get to the last 4, Phase 3, and that's the highly experimental phase, you know? So I do feel they're kind of broken into thirds at this point, and here's the start of the second third of the movies. Anyway, another big thing is, this is kind of the controversial one. You know, this is new Jason, it's not old Jason. A lot of people say that this is like Halloween 3, where it's the Friday the 13th movie without Jason, like Halloween 3 was the Halloween without Michael Myers. This sticks much closer to formula than Halloween 3, but it still had kind of a similar thing where there was an initial bout of controversy, and then a cult following to this movie kind of came up. You know, there's a whole bunch of people who like this movie the most, and a whole bunch of people who really came to fight for it. Now, personally, I like this movie. I think it's good. I'm not part of the cult, though. I don't think it's the best Friday ever. Personally, I've always been one of those guys. I really love Part 1, and I really love Part 4. Those are my favorites. But I also like, you know, a lot of the zombie Jason stuff, and I really do like the reboot as well. So I don't think it's the best of the series, but it's a solid middle entry with a lot to offer. And yeah, when it came out, it was initially kind of underrated because people were distracted by new Jason and they wanted old Jason, even though they basically act the same. But, you know, it was initially underrated, and there is a lot to like here that not everybody got right off the bat. And what a lot of people point out is the characters. There are some pretty fun side characters in this, and a lot of them are pretty memorable. For example, you get this character Reggie, aka Reggie the Reckless, I think his name is, and or nickname rather. And Reggie is this little kid. He is the grandson of the cook, and he is just a really likable kid. You know, you get kids in horror movies and sometimes they can be annoying, but he really does bring the spirit of youth and levity, and he does do something really cool towards the end of this movie. You also get Reggie's older brother, who I think is also in Return of the Living Dead, and he's cool as well. But you also get Ma and Junior. I forget the character's name, but this older lady who's a farmer at a nearby plot of land, and she always goes up to the camp, or not the camp, the facility rather, and is complaining about the kids sneaking onto her land. And I remember the first time I saw her, I thought, oh great, it's another one of these characters, the, you know, comical country person, why you stay off my land? But quite quickly, you can see that she's a better version of this character. Like, I've seen this character done so many times so poorly, you know, the angry country person, but here's like the best version of this character. She really gets in people's faces. She's so creative with her insults and her threats and just the way she goes after people, and just the moment where she's yelling at the sheriff and then she hops onto her son's bike and flips him off. Like, okay, this character is actually pretty cool. So yeah, you get some pretty cool side characters. Although that being said, not all the side characters are perfect, and there definitely is some forgettable people here. And sadly, when you talk about negative characterizations, Tommy isn't the best in this movie, and he basically goes from silent to he'll flip out and he'll attack people, and it'll be really tough for like a second, and they'll go back to being silent. And I get, you know, he's traumatized, he's not going to go out and be social. But the thing is, and why this movie, it doesn't really work with him, is Tommy is presented as a suspect, that he might be new Jason. But because he's a suspect, we can't really get to know him too much, otherwise we'll know one way or another if Tommy did it. So because he's a suspect, this character is always kept at arm's length, and we don't get to know him. I mean, there's scenes where like Tommy and Reggie bond talking about Tommy's old mask that he made himself, and that was a cool moment, and I really wish we got more with Tommy in this movie, but the fact is he's a suspect, so we don't ever get close enough to him, you know? So I felt that that was a real flaw with this movie. As far as the script goes, it's kind of formulaic, but it really does work. It's a case of Friday the 13th, knowing what works and going, okay, don't stray too far from formula. This is what makes Friday the 13th successful. So it's formulaic, but it's really fun. It knows what it's doing. And we also get the mystery element, and I guess we'll talk about that now. The first Friday the 13th had this whodunit element as well, so it feels kind of similar. The only thing with the mystery is there's not enough real leads, and, you know, there are some clues, like if you go back and rewatch this knowing who the killer is, you're like, oh yeah, that's because of that, you know, so there are some clues, and there are a few red herrings, but it really doesn't play up the mystery super well, where you feel like you can guess and go, oh, it's this person, or oh, it's that person. The mystery here, it really isn't great, you know, like they say, oh, maybe the killer is this drifter guy, but he's not in the movie near enough to really consider him or really put your chips on the table with this character. So yeah, I really wish the mystery was fleshed out better, but the fact is, towards the end, it don't really know enough, and it feels like the killer could be anybody, and it really does turn out to just be anybody, to the point where when the mystery is revealed, the sheriff has to come up, talk to the final girl, and say, this is why this person being the killer makes sense, and just explain it all. So yeah, the mystery just doesn't work out, and also with new Jason, they keep it pretty similar, you know. The actor that played Jason, you know, it's like a stuntman, and it wasn't the same guy that plays who Jason is revealed to be. He said he focused on playing Jason like Jason, and not so much like the character who was going to be new Jason, and that really does show. He's essentially just Jason with a new mask. But here's kind of a weird thing with this movie, is they keep him out of frame for most of it, so you don't get to see new Jason enough, and they keep him like cropped out where you just see like his feet or his hands or his point of view, and it's like a big reveal when he burst in. And then he burst in, and it's just same old Jason with a different mask. And this mask, by the way, was shown in the title card, so it's not a surprise. But how much of a surprise is it that it has blue chevrons now instead of red? Overall, I don't mind the idea of let's just keep it the same and just change the colors. But I didn't like that we didn't get to see too much of new Jason, because he's in the shadows for some reason, because that's what Friday the 13th Part 1 did, right? So yeah, I wish we got to see more of the actual killer himself. And last big critique, the kills. The kills in Friday the 13th are in general a step up above regular slasher movie kills. They always do their best to try to be a little bit more creative, try to come up with something that you're going to remember, and have some really fantastic deaths in here. And there are some good ones in this movie. A guy gets his face, he gets stabbed in the mouth with a road flare. That's pretty cool. A character's in a porta potty and Jason starts stabbing into it. That's pretty cool. But I think the best way to describe the kills in this movie is the leather strap kill. This character's next to a tree. Jason takes a leather strap, puts it across his eyes, and it gets a stick and starts twisting the stick, crushing his head. Cool kill. Cool idea. Now, does his head get completely smushed and his brain shoot out? No, this isn't a Tom Savini movie, sadly. But it is pretty cool, but it felt like it was just missing that little bit of oomph, that last little bit, and surprise, surprise, that's thanks to the good old ratings board. This movie was, like a lot of the other Friday the 13th movies, cut down because of the ratings board. But here, this movie seemed to get it a little worse than it had been in the past, and that really does suck. There's several of the kills where if you look at what they were supposed to be, or if you find like still images of what the effects were going to be, there's so much better versions, and you really do get the feel like, okay, that's a cool idea, it's just held back just that little bit too much. And it is one of those things where back in the day, this stuff wasn't saved as well. I mean, even today, it's not released as well as it should be, even though it's probably sitting on a hard drive somewhere. But back then, it was like, old footage, didn't use it in the movie, throw it out. And I really hope someone finds this footage. I would love to see the original X-rated cuts of the Friday the 13th movies. And especially with this one, seeing all that they trimmed down, it does kind of suck. But the kills are still good, but it's just that little bit that they're missing, and you can tell, but they're still pretty good, you know? So anyway, yeah, I like this movie. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a solid middle entry. It's not my favorite in the series, and I know there's some people that are big cult fans of it, and they want it to, they say it's like the best one. And I don't think it's the best one. I still think it's pretty good, though. But not in my top. Anyway, without further ado, I want to analyze this movie a little bit more. I'm going to be talking a bit about the plot. I'll be avoiding major spoilers, so none of the ending or who Jason is, none of the specifics from that stuff. But I will be analyzing the plot and saying my piece on a few plot points, so let's go into the deeper dive section. We open up with Corey Feldman. Great to see him back. The actor that played Tommy Jarvis in Part 4 is coming back for the opening sequence in this. Apparently he said he wanted to do it more, but he was busy filming Goonies at the time, which, yeah, go film that movie. That's going to make you way more down the line. But they only had him for a weekend, and they shot this quick opening dream sequence, so good to have him while you can. But there's a dream sequence where he visits Jason's grave, and he sees two hoodlums start to dig it up when Jason pops out, kills them, and starts heading for Tommy, where, of course, he wakes up. So yeah, even though we have new Jason instead of old Jason, we do get Dream Jason in this movie, so we do get little bits of the old one, even though he's not real, you know? Anyway, Tommy wakes up. He's a lot more grown up now. I think canonically he's 17, which also means this movie takes place a few years after it was released, but whatever. And he's in the back of a car. You see, after the events of Part 4, he's not doing too well. When they look at his file later on, they're like, wow, this guy is on some pretty heavy medication, and he's been through a ton of trauma, but he's getting better, and he's getting sent to this house, what do they call it, like Plainhurst? And it's sort of a transitional thing. Kids who are doing good go to this house. There's a lot less rules, a lot more freedom. They stay there with the other teenagers, and they get ready to go back to the real world. So this is a little bit different than your normal Friday the 13th camp counselors. These people have lived together for months, and a lot of the group really does know each other, and he goes in there and he starts to meet all the different people in the group. Again, some people are more memorable than others. But yeah, a really interesting group of kids. One thing though with this movie is being at this facility rather than a camp. You're actually not on the lake this time. We are in the town of Crystal Lake, but we are not on the lake Crystal Lake. So this is the first Friday the 13th movie to not take place on the Crystal Lake lake. Still the town, but not the lake or camp. So that was interesting, and to be honest, it is a change of pace, but I do miss the lakes. So this is the first one that's not a lakeside slasher. Anyway, we then meet one of the other kids, Joey, who kind of feels like Shelly from Part 3, but even worse off socially. He wants to be friends with other people. He wants to help. He wants to prove that he could do things, and people shut him out, sadly for him. So yeah, he's a bit of the outcast character, and he goes to this one kid who's a little bigger and a little angrier, and he's chopping wood, and he inadvertently ticks this guy off and gets killed. So Joey there will be the first death, and we see, the paramedics come to pick him up, the sheriff's there too, and a lot of people, a lot of the teens, they knew this guy. He was, again, kind of an outcast, but it's still someone they had known for months, so there's heavy distress now. But of course the sheriff's like, grow up, just haul him out of here, and some people are not as caring as others. But they take him away, and then later on, people start to get killed. Something's happening. Did the sight of blood trigger one of the people at the facility? Is it someone else? Is it the Drifter? Who is new Jason, and why are they here? The sheriff says it can't be Jason. Jason's dead. We cremated him. Well, it was the mayor that said that, actually. And the sheriff goes, well, did you see that? And I'm guessing he didn't, because we find out in Part 6 that no, Jason wasn't cremated. So, yeah, the mayor's wrong here. But anyway, the mayor insists that Jason is dead, and the sheriff thinks it might be him. And of course, people are starting to get picked off. We get some traditional Friday the 13th style murder vignettes. And I like to say that Friday the 13th does these a little better than other series that would try to mimic it. We get two greasers in their leather jackets, and they're on the way to go party when their car breaks down. we get a waitress and this man with a mustache who are ready to go and party as well, and she's getting ready while she closes up the diner, and he's hanging out in his car doing casual drugs. And of course, Jason is going to go after all these randos. They're randos, but again, this movie has a better sense of character. I think I heard somewhere, and the Friday the Friday the 13th behind the scenes rumors are all over the place and contradictory to another, but allegedly the director of this movie didn't really care. He was supposedly strung out on drugs the whole time, and in turn the actors had a lot of freedom to ad-lib and do whatever they wanted, so you get a lot of these characters just kind of doing whatever and having a greater sense of freedom to experiment, so you get little characters that aren't in the movie that long, like the greasers or the mustache man or the waitress, and you know, they're a little more expressive than normal. Anyway, the kills will of course turn to the kids at the facility, and they'll start to disappear as well until one dark and rainy night, very reminiscent of the first movie's rainy night. Actually, you can see a few times in this movie where it does try to mimic the first. The rainy night, where you don't see the killer. There's even a few kills that I feel are references, you know, a through the bed kill, and there's also a garden shears kill that's probably a reference to The Burning. But anyway, I'm losing track. One dark and rainy night, the deaths, people are obviously gone, and you gotta do the classic Friday the 13th. I need to go and find my friends. I wonder where they are. And the dark and rainy night, things are going to really kick off and be a good finale. I will say, with the finale, without spoiling anything major, both the final girl and the kid really do get some cool moments and times to shine. They both pull out something crazy. And while there is some cool moments in the end, there is also some frustrating moments. Anyone who's seen the movie will know there's one part where you're like, Jason, move. Jason, move. Jason, why aren't you moving? So there is that moment, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you rewatch it. But anyway, it's still a fun finale. They, of course, go to a barn, because Friday the 13th loves barns. But yeah, you know, like I said, this movie is pretty good. It's a solid middle entry, and I think it's fun. I don't think it's the best thing ever, and there are some definite faults. The mystery isn't great. Tommy Jarvis's character could have been done better, and the kills are just missing that little bit thanks to the ratings board, so that's always going to be a problem. But the characters are a little better, there's a good sense of humor here, and yeah, the characters being lively, and there is creative deaths, you know, even though a little bit censored, but still, overall, a solid Friday the 13th entry. Not the best thing ever, but a relatively solid sequel, and I thought there's a lot to like here. Again, I'm still part 1 and part 4, but this is still good, you know? Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Friday the 13th playlist. I've talked about the first 4 movies already. I've done a physical media collection. I've also reviewed the reboot and Lost Tales from Camp Blood. I think I'm the only one who's talked about Lost Tales from Camp Blood, but I've covered a bit there. So if you want to see me talk about more Friday, you can find that here. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.